The air within the gilded spoon was always perfectly calibrated. Cool, hushed, scented faintly with truffles and old money. Tonight, however, it felt like an anesthetic, numbing me even as a sharp, piercing pain began to bloom in my chest. Every soft clink of crystal, every murmur of polite laughter from the surrounding tables, seemed to amplify the internal scream building within me, a silent crescendo of years of resentment and unacknowledged sacrifice. I sat there, 30 years old, encased in a sleek obsidian silk dress that, despite its exorbitant price tag, paid for entirely by me, of course, felt less like evening wear and more like a uniform for a funeral. My dark hair, typically pulled back in a severe, no-nonsense bun befitting my professional life, had been painstakingly styled into soft waves, a futile, almost pathetic attempt to soften the edges of a woman who had, for too long, existed on the periphery of her own life, defined by her absence rather than her presence. This was my sister's promotion dinner, a lavish affair I had reluctantly, almost masochistically, agreed to finance, a final, desperate olive branch extended to a family that, for the past 5 years, had systematically treated me as if I were a ghost. Or, perhaps, a persistent, embarrassing stain they couldn't quite scrub away from their pristine narrative. My name is Cassandra Thorne, and for the better part of a decade, I had operated in the deepest, most opaque shadows of the United States government. Not as a spy with a Beretta and a penchant for international intrigue, but as a phantom, a whisper, a digital guardian of critical national infrastructure. My existence was known only to a select, highly cleared few within the labyrinthine intelligence community, my face a blank slate in public, my name a classified secret, my official cover, the one my family clung to with patronizing pity, was that of a reclusive, slightly eccentric data analyst, perpetually underemployed and forever living in the dazzling, self-constructed shadow of my younger sister Serena. They didn't know the truth. They couldn't. And in their ignorance, they built a narrative of my failure, a comfortable lie that suited their own self-aggrandizing vision. Serena, 2 years my junior, was their undisputed golden child. From the moment she could string a sentence together, she'd charmed her way into every spotlight, every achievement, while I devoured textbooks on cryptography and network architecture, dissecting complex code like a surgeon, my fingers flying across keyboards in a blur of focused intensity. Serena was mastering the art of social manipulation, effortlessly navigating the complex currents of popularity. She excelled at everything overtly visible: cheerleading, student government, dazzling public speaking, and later, networking events where she schmoozed with corporate titans. I excelled at the unseen, dissecting complex problems, building intricate, unbreakable systems, predicting vulnerabilities before they materialized. My parents, Arthur and Eleanor Thorne, had always favored her overt charisma, her ability to project an image of effortless success. I was the quiet achiever, the one who handled the thorny details, whose victories were always abstract, intangible, and therefore uncelebrated. Even in childhood, when Serena's kindergarten art project won a school prize, my meticulously coded elementary school website, a precursor to my future, went unnoticed, deemed too technical for anyone to appreciate. After college, where I earned a double major in computer science and applied mathematics, and secretly pursued a minor in Mandarin, a language I later found indispensable for tracking certain state-sponsored threat actors, I was recruited directly out of a highly competitive government scholarship program into a nascent, highly secretive division of National Cyber Command. My work was classified, compartmentalized, and utterly consuming. I thrived in the intellectual rigor, the high stakes, the quiet satisfaction of defending a nation from unseen threats that could cripple cities, shut down economies, or compromise national security. My early career was a whirlwind of late nights spent hunched over multiple screens in secure facilities, the air thick with the hum of servers and the faint scent of ozone. It was the exhilaration of outsmarting the most formidable adversaries on the digital battlefield. A chess game played at light speed against unseen opponents. Serena, meanwhile, entered the corporate world, quickly rising through the ranks of Aegis Solutions, a prominent defense contracting firm. She was a master of self-promotion, a siren call of ambition and charm, effortlessly captivating anyone in her orbit. She attributed her rapid ascent to her brilliant strategic mind and unparalleled networking skills, often regaling our parents with exaggerated tales of her indispensable contributions, glossing over any difficult aspects with a wave of her perfectly manicured hand. The irony, a constant, bitter undercurrent in my life, was that many of Aegis Solutions' most lucrative government contracts were secured, directly or indirectly, by the very cybersecurity protocols and intelligence I had helped develop or directly provided. I was the ghost in their machine, the unseen hand guiding their success, while Serena basked in the reflected glory, oblivious or indifferent to the actual source of her company's stability. 5 years ago, the nature of my work shifted dramatically. A highly sensitive state-sponsored operation, codenamed Project Nightingale, required my complete, untraceable immersion. A sophisticated, adaptive AI, developed by a hostile nation-state, was attempting to infiltrate critical national infrastructure. Power grids, financial networks, communication systems, even the electoral process. My role was to go deep, to become a phantom within the enemy's network, to understand its architecture, predict its next moves, and ultimately dismantle it from the inside out. This meant cutting all ties, disappearing from public life, severing even the most tenuous connections. My apartment was emptied, my online presence scrubbed, my phone number changed. My family was given a vague explanation of intense, classified research projects, a cover story designed to satisfy, but never reveal. Their reaction was swift and brutal. My sudden reclusiveness, coupled with my inability to explain the specifics of my work, was twisted into something far more sinister in their narrative. I became the difficult one, the failure, the weird one who couldn't hold down a real job, whose vague projects were clearly a cover for personal shortcomings or, worse, professional incompetence. They had always valued appearances above all else, and my mysterious absence was a gaping, inconvenient hole in their perfectly curated family portrait. Serena, ever the opportunist, stepped smoothly into the void I left. She became the new darling, the new fixer in their eyes, subtly reinforcing their negative perceptions of me, basking in the glow of their attention. She reveled in her growing influence within the family, never once questioning why I had disappeared, never once thinking to truly check on me, or to challenge the convenient lie they all adopted. My family, desperate to maintain their pristine image, conveniently replaced my quiet competence with Serena's flashy, superficial triumphs, actively erasing me from their collective memory. The emotional toll of this self-imposed isolation was immense. I lived in a secure, windowless facility, my world confined to glowing screens, encrypted communications, and hushed conversations with a handful of trusted colleagues. Loneliness became a persistent companion, a dull ache beneath the surface of my unwavering focus. I missed mundane things, a casual Sunday brunch with friends, a walk in the park, the simple rhythm of ordinary life. But I never wavered. The stakes were too high. I was saving lives, protecting a nation. That was my purpose, my guiding star in the self-imposed darkness. A purpose far greater than any familial slight. My return to normal life after Project Nightingale's successful completion was gradual, disorienting. The world felt louder, brighter, almost overwhelming after years in the muted, controlled environment of deep cover. My team celebrated, of course, a quiet, almost reverent acknowledgement of what we had achieved. But then came the reintegration, the awkward attempts to reconnect with the world that had moved on without me. My family was at the top of that list, a painful necessity I knew I had to face. I had hoped, naively perhaps, that 5 years would have mellowed them, that my return, however understated, would spark some genuine curiosity, some belated empathy. I was wrong. Tonight was Serena's moment. She had just been promoted to Vice President of Global Operations at Aegis Solutions, a title heralding her as the youngest executive in the company's history. My parents, Arthur and Eleanor Thorne, beaming with paternal pride, had insisted on this extravagant celebration at the Gilded Spoon, a restaurant so exclusive it required reservations months in advance and possessed a wine list thicker than a medieval tome. My payment for the entire event, a subtle nod to my supposed financial struggles, was accepted without a second thought, not even a perfunctory thank you. It was simply expected, a donation from the perpetual failure to the shining success. I had called my mother last week, trying to offer to bring a special dessert, to contribute in a way that might feel more personal. "Oh, darling," she'd sighed, "don't trouble yourself. We've arranged everything. Just be there, and try to be presentable." The dismissiveness stung, but I swallowed it, as I always did. As the evening wore on, the alcohol flowed freely, lubricating tongues and loosening inhibitions. The self-congratulatory speeches began, each one a polished ode to Serena's brilliance and the Thorne family's inherent superiority. My father, a former corporate lawyer now living off the generous trust funds I had quietly managed for him for years, raised his crystal flute, his eyes glittering with a mixture of champagne and self-importance. His gaze swept across the room, lingering for a moment on my sister, then, almost as an afterthought, flickered dismissively past me, as if I were a piece of inconvenient furniture. "To Serena!" he boomed, his voice carrying across the hushed dining room, momentarily silencing the gentle clatter of silverware. A true Thorne, a woman of vision, of courage, of unparalleled dedication to her country and her family. There was polite applause from our table, an echo of the self-satisfaction that permeated their very being. My mother, elegant and aloof, nodded approvingly, her perfectly coiffed head barely moving, a queen presiding over her miniature court, oblivious to the drama unfolding beneath her carefully constructed serenity. Then came the dig. The one I had anticipated, the one that always came. The subtle, yet cutting, remark designed to put me in my place, to remind me of my perceived failings, to reinforce the narrative of my insignificance. And to those who serve with honor, my father continued, his voice dripping with thinly veiled sarcasm, his eyes momentarily locking with mine, a glint of cruel satisfaction in their depths. And those who just serve their own egos, perpetually hiding from the world, never quite reaching their full potential, content to remain in the shadows while others truly shine. A ripple of awkward laughter, a few polite coughs. Even Serena, usually so poised, so controlled, allowed a small, smug smirk to play on her lips, a look that said, "See? Even Dad agrees. You're the family disappointment, aren't you?" My mother, catching my eye for a fleeting second, quickly looked away, feigning intense interest in the intricate floral centerpiece. Her silence a complicit agreement, a betrayal more profound than any shouted insult. It was the sound of my family closing ranks against me, a silent, damning indictment. I sat there, chewing on my pride like dry bread, my jaw aching from the effort to maintain a neutral, unreadable expression. Not a word. Not a single defense, just silence, a silence that screamed, "You're not one of us anymore, Cassandra. You never were. You're the outcast, the odd one, the failure." For 5 long years I had endured this, the subtle slights, the condescending pity, the deliberate exclusion. They had buried me before I even left the battlefield of their expectations. They had written me off, erased my name from their family narrative, fed me to gossip and silence, confident that I would simply fade away into obscurity, a cautionary tale whispered at holiday gatherings. The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth, sharper than the acidic edge of the champagne. I, Cassandra Thorne, was a major general in a clandestine division of the U.S. Cyber Force, responsible for defending critical infrastructure from state-sponsored attacks. My current project involved neutralizing a sophisticated network of digital spies targeting Aegis Solutions itself. The very company Serena now lorded over. I was protecting them, even as they scorned me, even as they publicly humiliated me. My loyalty to my country, to my duty, had always outweighed my personal feelings. Until now, the line between professional and personal had finally blurred, then shattered. My mind, usually an intricate web of algorithms and threat assessments capable of untangling the most complex digital conundrums, was momentarily paralyzed by the sheer injustice, the profound cruelty of their words. How could they be so blind? So consumed by superficiality and self-importance? So utterly devoid of curiosity about the truth of my life? They had always chosen to believe the easiest narrative, the one that validated their own sense of superiority, regardless of its accuracy. Their blindness was a choice, a deliberate act of ignorance. Just as I felt the familiar, unwelcome burn of tears welling behind my eyes, threatening to betray my composure and unleash the pent-up anguish of years, threatening to shatter the mask I had so carefully constructed, the heavy oak doors of the Gilded Spoon swung open with a soft, almost imperceptible whoosh. A man walked in. He was tall, commanding, with shoulders that filled out his perfectly tailored military dress uniform, adorned with a constellation of medals and ribbons that glittered under the soft, diffused lighting. His presence was immediate, powerful, silencing the room in a ripple effect that started from the entrance and spread outwards. The subtle hum of conversation died down to an almost reverent hush. Heads, previously engrossed in their own opulent worlds, turned in unison, drawn by his undeniable aura of authority. He didn't look at my father, who instantly puffed out his chest, preparing for a handshake, a networking opportunity. He didn't look at my sister, whose poised smile had suddenly frozen on her face, a deer caught in the headlights of an oncoming revelation. His eyes, keen, intelligent, and direct, swept across the room with practiced ease and settled, unerringly, on me. He walked straight towards our table, his steps deliberate, confident, each movement exuding an aura of unwavering authority and undeniable purpose. Every smug face at our table, every smirking relative, dropped like bad stock, their carefully constructed expressions of superiority dissolving into open-mouthed shock. My father's hand, still holding his champagne flute, began to shake imperceptibly, liquid sloshing precariously over the rim. My mother's lips, previously set in a serene, approving smile, thinned into a tense line, her composure finally cracking. Serena, she looked like she'd swallowed her promotion whole, her eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and dawning dread, a terrifying realization slowly creeping into her consciousness. The silence in the room stretched, thick and pregnant with anticipation, a collective holding of breath. He stopped directly in front of me, his gaze unwavering, a flicker of something akin to knowing admiration in his stern, experienced eyes, a silent acknowledgement of shared burdens. His voice, deep and resonant, cut through the stunned silence like a diamond blade, clear and loud enough for every person in the room to hear, carrying a weight of authority that demanded attention. "General Thorne, ma'am," he said, offering a crisp, respectful salute, his hand snapping up with practiced precision, the movement sharp and deliberate. welcome back. Command has been waiting for your debrief. We need you back on active duty immediately." The silence that followed was deafening, heavier than gold, thicker than the richest velvet. It was the sound of a carefully constructed reality, shattering into a million irreparable pieces. My family's faces were a masterpiece of shock and disbelief, a tableau of dawning horror, a perfect portrayal of a world turned upside down. My father's jaw literally dropped, his champagne flute finally slipping from his grasp to shatter on the polished marble floor, the sound echoing explosively in the stillness. My mother's perfectly applied lipstick seemed to melt off her face, leaving her looking suddenly vulnerable, exposed. Serena's eyes, wide and panicked, darted frantically between the general and me, a silent, desperate question screaming in their depths. "What is happening? Who are you, really? What have I done, General?" My father finally managed, his voice a hoarse, incredulous whisper, barely audible above the ringing in my ears. "Cassandra? What? What is the meaning of this? This is a mistake. My daughter is a data analyst." His denial was desperate, almost pathetic. The general, whose name was General Alistair Armitage, a man whose reputation for ruthless efficiency and uncompromising integrity preceded him in every intelligence circle, lowered his hand. His gaze remained fixed on me, but his words were directed at my stunned family, a cold, clinical dissection of their ignorance. "Arthur," he acknowledged my father with a curt nod, a dismissive gesture that spoke volumes about his opinion of the man. "Your daughter Cassandra is not merely a data analyst. She holds the rank of Major General in the U.S. Cyber Force. She's been on deep cover for the past 5 years, leading the most critical counterintelligence operations this nation has seen. Her work has literally saved lives, prevented catastrophic attacks, and incidentally secured the very defense contracts that benefit your other daughter's company, Aegis Solutions, by ensuring the security of their systems against advanced threats." He paused, letting the devastating implications sink in, allowing the truth to settle like a shroud over their carefully constructed illusions. The color drained from Serena's face, leaving it ashen. Her hands, which had been resting delicately on the table, clenched into white-knuckled fists. She looked at me, a silent accusation in her eyes, as if I had orchestrated this public humiliation, as if I had betrayed her by daring to be more than they assumed, which, in a way, I had. I had betrayed their lie, their comfortable fantasy of my failure. General Thorne was instrumental in thwarting the Chimera Protocol cyber attack last month. Armitage continued, his voice calm, factual, yet devastatingly impactful. An attack, I might add, that targeted Aegis Solutions' proprietary defense systems and was specifically designed to exploit critical vulnerabilities in their older, outdated networks. Vulnerabilities that General Thorne had repeatedly warned them about. Years ago, when she was still nominally Cassandra Thorne, civilian consultant, had it succeeded, it would have decimated their entire network, exposed classified national security data of unimaginable value, and crippled their operations for months, if not years, leading to immense financial losses and a severe blow to national security. General Thorne risked everything. Her anonymity, her personal life, even her family's respect, all for the sake of this nation's security and for the continued viability of companies like Aegis Solutions, which, frankly, she helped keep afloat. He turned his gaze directly to my parents, his eyes cold and assessing, a silent judgment hanging heavy in the air. "You see, they buried me before I even left the battlefield," I echoed silently in my mind, a line from a forgotten poem. "They wrote me off, erased my name, fed me to gossip and silence. But guess what? I came back, and this time I brought the truth, and a witness." The internal monologue, my constant companion during those lonely years, was now a roaring affirmation. My father, who had always valued appearances above all else, who lived for public adulation, was visibly trembling, his face now a mask of profound shame. The weight of his public disparagement of me, now juxtaposed with the general's revelation, was crushing him. The reality of his misjudgment a bitter pill. Serena, finally realizing the full extent of the general's words, that her entire career at Aegis Solutions, her rapid ascent, but was now revealed to be built on a foundation secured by the very nobody she had mocked, looked utterly humiliated, her carefully constructed facade crumbling into dust. Her eyes darted frantically around the room, desperate for an escape, for a hole to swallow her, for the ground to simply open up and consume her. My mother, for the first time in years, met my gaze directly. There was no judgment there now, only a flicker of something akin to awe, and perhaps a profound, aching regret for her complicity in my erasure. "Welcome back, General," Armitage repeated, a genuine warmth now in his voice, his stern features softening almost imperceptibly as he turned fully to me. "We've missed you at command. And we have a new assignment waiting for you, a critical one. It's a blank slate, General, your academy, should you choose to accept it." He extended a hand to me, not a social gesture, but a profound professional acknowledgement, an invitation to return to my rightful place, to build something new from the ashes of the old. I looked at my family, their faces a mixture of shock, shame, and a desperate, belated attempt to reevaluate their perception of me. But it was too late. The years of neglect, of dismissive words, of deliberate exclusion, had built an impenetrable wall between us. The countless times I had begged for their understanding, for their belief, for their simple presence during my own struggles, only to be met with indifference or scorn. I had nothing left to say to them, nothing to prove. My silence was louder than any shouted defense, more damning than any accusation. It was the roar of a woman who had finally found her voice, not through words, but through her truth. I took General Armitage's hand, my touch firm, confident, my posture straighter than it had been in years, my shoulders squared, a sense of immense relief washing over me. "It's an honor, sir," I replied, my voice steady, imbued with a newfound strength and clarity that vibrated through every cell of my being. "I'm ready." As I turned to leave with the general, a man who truly understood the meaning of service and sacrifice, a true leader, I caught a final glimpse of Serena's face. She looked utterly lost, her eyes wide with uncharacteristic vulnerability, her usual arrogance replaced by a raw, naked fear. The gilded cage of her ambition had just been exposed as flimsy, its shiny exterior concealing a deep, inherent weakness. My father, slumped in his chair, seemed to have aged a decade in a single minute. His public image, his life's carefully constructed illusion of success, utterly shattered. My mother, for the first time, looked at me not with judgment, but with a profound, almost heartbreaking regret. But it was a fleeting moment, quickly overshadowed by the profound sense of detachment I felt. Their power over me, their ability to diminish me, was gone. Irrevocably, I walked away, not in anger, but in liberation. The next few days were a blur of media frenzy. The story exploded, a scandal that rocked both the elite social circles of Washington, D.C., and the high-tech defense industry. The Nobody Sister, how a hidden cyber general saved her family's empire and exposed their cruelty, screamed one headline. Silent Sentinel, the woman who vanished into the shadows to save a nation, and returned to shatter her family's lies, blared another. My name was everywhere, no longer just a ghost, but a household name, a symbol of quiet heroism and profound betrayal. The narrative of the Thorne family feud captivated the nation, a stark lesson in the dangers of valuing superficial success and public image over genuine character and integrity. Aegis Solutions, caught in the crossfire of the media storm, was forced to issue a carefully worded statement praising my unsung heroism and acknowledging my critical contributions to their security infrastructure, implicitly confirming the general's story and highlighting the very vulnerabilities I had worked to patch. The statement, however, felt less like an apology and more like damage control, a desperate attempt to salvage their reputation. Serena's promotion, while not formally revoked, was suddenly seen in a vastly different light, her achievements tainted by the undeniable revelation of my true, essential role in their security. She became known as the general's sister, her own light dimmed by the overwhelming shadow of the truth, her accomplishments now viewed as dependent on my unsung labor. She found herself at the receiving end of pointed questions and subtle professional snubs at industry events, a world she had so effortlessly navigated, now feeling strangely cold and unwelcoming. Her network, once a source of her power, now seemed to shrink, as contacts distanced themselves from the controversy. I didn't seek revenge. There was no need. The truth, in its raw, unadorned power, was its own justice. I simply stepped away and let people face the consequences of their own actions, the bitter harvest of their cultivated ignorance. General Armitage's offer was real, and it was the answer to a prayer I hadn't even realized I was uttering during those long, lonely years in the dark. I accepted the new assignment to establish and lead a cutting-edge cyber warfare training academy, nestled deep within the secure, sprawling mountains of Virginia. My mission: to mold the next generation of digital defenders, to instill in them not just technical prowess, but the foundational values of integrity, humility, and genuine, selfless service. Values my own family had so profoundly lacked. It was a chance to build something truly meaningful, something that reflected my deepest principles, a legacy built not on public accolades but on real impact. My new life was rigorous, demanding, but profoundly fulfilling. I was surrounded by brilliant, dedicated individuals who respected me for my mind, my experience, and my unwavering commitment to duty. I found a camaraderie, a sense of belonging, a profound mutual respect I had never experienced with my own family. My new family was chosen, not given, forged in shared purpose and mutual trust, united by a common mission and a deep understanding of the sacrifices involved in defending a nation. We trained tirelessly, we strategized, we pushed the boundaries of cyber defense, always learning, always adapting. I adopted a rescue dog, a loyal, intelligent German shepherd named Echo, who became my constant companion, a creature whose unconditional love and unwavering loyalty were a stark contrast to the conditional affection and shifting allegiances I had received from my blood relatives. He was a silent, furry anchor in my new, fulfilling reality. My emotional healing was a slow, arduous process. The scars of betrayal ran deep, etching themselves onto my psyche. But in the quiet solitude of the mountains, surrounded by the towering, ancient trees and the crisp, clean air, I began to unpack years of suppressed pain. Therapy, a courageous step I took for myself, helped me process the complex emotions of abandonment, resentment, and the profound grief of losing a family I had once cherished, even if they had never truly cherished me back. I learned to differentiate between healthy boundaries and defensive walls, to forgive, not for their sake, but for my own peace. I found solace in the simple pleasures, the demanding hikes, the quiet hum of servers in my new state-of-the-art facility, and the shared laughter with colleagues who quickly became trusted friends. One colleague, Dr. Eris Thorne, no relation, ironically, a brilliant behavioral psychologist specializing in post-traumatic growth, became a confidant, helping me navigate the complex terrain of public recognition after years of anonymity. She was a calm, steady presence, her wisdom a beacon in my journey of self-discovery. My parents tried to reconnect, their calls and emails filled with awkward apologies and transparent attempts to reclaim their shattered public image. Cassandra, darling, we never truly understood the depth of your work, the sacrifices you made, my mother would plead, her voice tight with uncharacteristic desperation, the carefully modulated tones of a woman used to getting her way now laced with a rare tremor of vulnerability. My father, in a rare moment of genuine humility, admitted, "We were wrong about you, Cassie, terribly wrong. We just didn't see. We were so caught up in other things." But their words, while perhaps sincere in that moment, rang hollow, devoid of genuine remorse for the years of pain they had inflicted, still tinged with the familiar desire to control the narrative, to simply put things back to how they were, to erase the uncomfortable truth. I gently but firmly declined their invitations, their attempts to mend fences that were not just broken, but shattered beyond repair. Some wounds run too deep for simple apologies to heal. Some bonds, once severed by neglect and cruelty, cannot be reforged, especially when the foundation of respect was never truly there. Serena, however, never reached out directly. Her silence was louder than her parents' attempts at reconciliation, a testament to her profound shame and, perhaps, her inability to truly confront her own behavior. I heard through mutual acquaintances that her career at Aegis Solutions, while stable, had lost its previous meteoric trajectory. The whispers persisted, the subtle questions about her actual contributions, the lingering shadow of her sister, the cyber general, a constant, uncomfortable reminder. She remained in DC, but her social life, once a vibrant tapestry of exclusive events, had dwindled. The golden child had lost her luster, dimmed by the cold light of truth, and the world had moved on. My career, meanwhile, soared. I was no longer just a name. I was a legend in the cybersecurity world, known not only for my strategic brilliance and unwavering calm under pressure, but also for my profound integrity. I advised senators on cutting-edge threats, lectured at the Pentagon on national defense strategies, and shaped critical cyber defense policies that impacted millions of lives. But my greatest satisfaction came from the quiet moments. Seeing a young cadet grasp a complex concept, witnessing the budding camaraderie among my trainees, knowing that I was building something real, something that truly mattered, forging a legacy of impact, not just image. 1 year after the Gilded Spoon incident, I was giving a keynote address at a national cybersecurity conference in Washington, D.C. The auditorium was packed, filled with thousands of aspiring analysts, seasoned engineers, and top-tier military personnel. I spoke about the unseen battles fought in the digital realm, the quiet heroes who protected nations without recognition, the importance of inner conviction over external validation. I shared anecdotes from my time in deep cover, the personal sacrifices, the moments of doubt, and the unwavering belief in the mission. I spoke about the insidious nature of judgment, the pain of being underestimated, and the ultimate triumph of living authentically, of choosing integrity over acceptance. As I concluded my speech, a powerful message of purpose and self-worth, the standing ovation was thunderous, echoing through the vast hall like a tidal wave of appreciation. I scanned the faces in the crowd, a sea of admiring, inspired eyes. And then I saw them. My mother and Serena, seated in the very back row, almost hidden, their faces pale and drawn under the bright lights. My father was not with them. Perhaps he simply couldn't face the public humiliation. Or perhaps he preferred to remain in his self-imposed echo chamber of self-importance. My mother and Serena looked small, insignificant, out of place in a room filled with people who embodied the very values they had mocked, the very excellence they had denied. They were observers in a world they once thought they commanded, now watching a woman they had cast aside shine. I held their gaze for a moment, a flicker of understanding passing between us. There was no anger, no triumph on my part, just a profound, quiet sense of peace. I had nothing to prove to them anymore. My worth was not dictated by their approval, nor diminished by their past contempt. It was inherent, earned through my actions, validated by my own conscience. The pain was still a memory, a scar that remained, but it no longer held power over me. It was a testament to a battle won, not a wound still bleeding. I stepped away from the podium, making my way through the throng of well-wishers, shaking hands, exchanging brief words of encouragement, accepting sincere congratulations. General Armitage met me backstage, a proud smile on his face, his eyes alight with admiration. "You were magnificent, General," he said, his voice brimming with genuine appreciation. "Just telling my truth, sir," I replied, a soft, genuine smile gracing my lip. My truth had set me free. My life had become a testament to the fact that sometimes the ones closest to us are the ones who hurt us the most, not always with malice, but with indifference, with blindness, with their own insecurities and superficialities. But from that pain, we learn to stand up, set boundaries, and protect our self-worth. We discover that true power lies not in controlling others, but in commanding our own destiny, in choosing our own path, in defining our own success, independent of external validation. My journey taught me that self-respect is not a gift, it is a battle won against the forces that seek to diminish you. It's about recognizing your own strength, even when others refuse to see it. It's about refusing to be a victim, even when circumstances conspire to make you one. And ultimately, it's about building a life so authentically aligned with your values that no external judgment, no past betrayal, can ever shatter your inner peace. The silence of their dismissal had become the roar of my triumph. My wounds had become my wisdom, and the quiet dignity with which I walked away from their toxicity, from their superficial world, was my greatest victory. For anyone feeling invisible, undervalued, or dismissed by those who should champion them, know your worth. Build your own legacy, brick by brick, truth by truth. And when they finally see you, let them see the person you became, not despite their judgment but because you dared to defy it. Remember, you don't need anyone's approval anymore. You just need the peace within, and you will find it by standing up and saying, "This is mine, my life, my truth, and I will not let anyone take it away." Choose your purpose, live with integrity, and let your actions speak louder than any words. Your strength is not in how others perceive you, but in how you perceive yourself.